Hello.
Popping.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Thanks very much for joining us today.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's I mean, growing up, you and Andre created an amazing legacy in Black culture and music um, with the creation of Uptown, and I did a poll this evening, to people to say who their favorite record label was between Uptown, Bad Boy, LaFace, and So So Def, and almost half of the votes went to Uptown because of the caliber of artists that you guys created. But before we get
All right.
into to that, part of the journey of this show is to understand how your journey, how you where you were brought up and raised, and how you got into music and entertainment, and just seeing your progression. Uh,
Right.
yeah, so if we could just start off with where you're from, and we go from there.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you about. I'll do it simultaneously. Me and Andre.
Okay.
Hold on for a second. I lost you. I don't know why you keep blinking out, but me and Andre grew up in the Bronx.
Okay. In New York.
So, yeah, Bronx, New York. Relatively good kids.
Okay.
We
It's a
could play.
relative.
Yeah, touch football in the park, and do things that kids do. Ride on sleds, because we grew up in the northern part of the Bronx, not the
Okay.
south, so the northeast Bronx. And the northeast Bronx, just to let you know, that's where basically all like top drug dealers come from,
Oh Lord.
uh, basketball players come from, a
Wow.
lot of basketball players come from there, a lot of entertainers come from there.
Wow.
And so at a very young age, me and Andre was into music. Rap music was just emerging at that time. And this is when they had like artists like King Tim the Third from the Fatback Band and Curtis Blow.
Curtis
And,
Brown.
but even before him, Jimmy Spicer, Schoolie D, and that kind of stuff. So we were like 9, 10 years old. Not when Curtis was doing it, but when Jimmy Spicer and these guys were doing it.
Okay.
And so we got into rap music, and Andre, I used to go to clubs because I was very big for my age at the time, and I had a full-grown beard at like 12 years old.
Oh.
And I looked like everybody's uncle that I hung out with. And so me and Andre, we would talk about music and fashion and, basketball, sports, because that's what we were surrounded by. We were surrounded by people that were very fashionable, and the most fashion-forward people were from Harlem,
Okay.
in our eyes. So, and Harlem is the place where you had the Rucker, you had the Rooftop, you had all these different drug dealers
Oh, the
that
truck.
would hire, basketball players to play on their team in the Rucker. So they would
Wow.
have teams that were like $1 million teams,
Wow.
and they would bet large amounts of money on these teams and to play in the Rucker. And they would, lure, great college players, even NBA players at that time,
Wow.
and all these guys played in the Rucker before. Dr. J, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then you had street legends that played in it, like Pee Wee Kirkland, who was, could have went to the NBA if he wanted to, and then you had Joe Hammond, that was a drug addict, and he's the best player ever to play the game of basketball.
Wow.
And so you have all these people there. Now you put that there, now you have the entertainers, the music people, you know what I mean? Like coming through there, and it's a mix of drug dealers, college educated professors that wanted to be in the street and go to the hot clubs like, the Red Parrot or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you got basketball players that wanted to be next to them. And, in entertainment, there's always that element in the entertainment. And so you had this mix of people, and it was like it it was like a Renaissance era, to be honest. It was like a Renaissance era after the Renaissance era. And there was a kid there. We were like 16 years old at this point. Mm-hmm. And there was a kid there, and his name was Teddy Riley.
Wow.
And he's a prodigy in the church. And he had 30 managers that were drug dealers, criminal gangsters, or whatever. And it was impossible to get next to him just for him to make the, just for him to even produce a record for you. Because he was living in a project at that time. And he had a studio set up there. And he was, like I said, he was a prodigy in church moving around. So as we coming out of high school, we going into high school, we started giving parties, hip hop parties. And Andre always had the vision. He always had the musical vision of what the party should look like, what it should sound like, what the people should look like in it. And, at first our thing was at 123 in the Bronx, but I was already involved with hip hop music because the school I went to had DJ Breakout, Funky 4 Plus One More, Raheem from the Furious 5, and you had Christopher Williams there. You had all these people in this school that I went to. It was called Truman High School in the Northeast Bronx. And I used to tell Andre, in that school, we had the prettiest women in the school on the planet. So Andre went to a high school called Charles Evan Hughes in Manhattan. And basically it was a bum-ass school. And Truman was like a brand new school in a brand new area in the Bronx called Co-op City. And what they had, you had athletes moving up there, people that were becoming very successful in Harlem, whether it was selling drugs or going to school or whatever, they would start moving uptown because it was a better area because it had green grass, green grass, pretty women. And it was a new school that had 25 swimming pools, Olympic-sized swimming pools. Wow. It had a football field, the stadium-sized football field, a baseball field. It had 25 different gyms, and we had the first year of the high school that was open. We won a national championship in high school. So, and also, we had a lot of like I said, affluent people moving there, and they have soon moved out since then. But during that time, they were moving in, and it was basically a predominantly Jewish neighborhood. So Andre would come up to my high school from Charles F. Hughes because we had the pretty girls up there. So he would, and I would tell him, I said, yo, the Northeast Bronx, this is the fly shit. This is Uptown. We got the fly bitches, we got the fly drug dealers, we got the fly haircuts, we got the fly academic guys who are we got everything up here. Where you live at is the South Bronx. That's some bum ass shit. And both agreed at sooner or later at one point, the whole Bronx is not Harlem. And it doesn't have the history that Harlem has. It doesn't have the information that Harlem has. It doesn't have, the swag. The money doesn't come through here like that. And so, we took our whole show on the road and we wound up in Harlem. We wound up starting to set up during in Manhattan and Harlem, and he started becoming a MC. Okay. And he was part of a group called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And Mr. Hyde lived on 110th Street on the east side of Harlem. So he was already in because we needed some Harlem cats to get down with us to officiate.
Okay.
All right. So then Andre started and Alonzo started performing at Harlem World and going to Harlem World. And the people at Harlem World, they embraced him because Andre is like a genius from the beginning. Like, he would attract people because we had like I said, it all was a plan. He was the only guy, him and Alonzo and our crew, that wore a suit and a tie at 13 years 15 years old. And it was designed to separate them from the crowd because they weren't the best MCs, but they were good. They were good, but they weren't the best MCs. And, you know, you had these other people that were like great MCs, like Melly Mel and these guys, and Africa Bambaata's crew and whatever crew it was. But on these guys, we decided and we designed a plan where it would separate these guys from everybody. So they became suit and tie rappers and became the business rappers. That's what they wanted to present, that we are about business. And Andre was definitely about business, and he got right to it. And once he became, you know, Dr. Jekyll of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And what was, he quickly realized, okay, you know, I've taken this thing as far as I can take it. Now, let me get into the business side of it. I don't want to be an MC. I want to own a record company. And we were in college at that point. We were in Lehman College at that point. Now, Lehman College was a melting pot for talent as well. So I'm leaving Truman High School, which I had all these artists around me, and I was going to clubs. I seen Kool Herc from the beginning. I used to go to the Evilo. I used to go to the Executive Playhouse. I was from the beginning. I was there since there was no Puerto Ricans breakdancing. It was all black guys breakdancing, Latin music and disco. You know what I mean? And when we took it from the street of Kango hats and Adidas sneakers and breakdancing on boxes and took it into the club, that wasn't fly to us no more. We wanted to perform for the club. We wanted to be around the fly chicks. We wanted to be around the educated, you know, your professor went to the same club as you. You know what I mean? And then you also seen the top drug dealer there. You also seen the top basketball players there. You also seen the top football players, not really football players. They wasn't in the loop at that time. It was really basketball players, you know, and maybe some baseball players. And these guys, you know, they made up this community of music, this community of sports. And Andre was at the forefront of it all. So at that time, he's like 19 years old, getting ready to turn 20. We in college, you know. He's like, I got to make some extra money, and he starts working at WWRL. And this is where this radio station was an AM radio station instead of an FM radio station. This is where Frankie Crocker, Kim Webb, all these guys come out of. They come out of, you know, BK Kirkland. They went on to run WBLS, one of the biggest stations in the country at that time. And Frankie Crocker was one of the biggest, you know, radio announcers in the world at that time. You know what I mean? And the New York stations were amazing at that time. Frankie Crocker would come up with these catchphrases because he would be hanging around, you know, the Red Parrot at that night or Bentley's at that night amongst all these people. So he would get these little catchphrases, words. And, you know, by the way, I'm a wordsmith. So, you know, I made up all the words that people use today, right now. And so, you know, Andre had his talent. I had my talent. Alonzo has his talent. And Kurt Woodley was a part of our crew as well. And I'm going to explain who these people are down the line. Now, so we are going up to the Rucker Park, you know. Teddy's about 15 years old right now, and we're about 20, 21 years old. And we have already designed Uptown Records. And Uptown was based on Uptown, the Bronx, because I used to tell them, like, yo, when you come uptown, we got all the fly haircuts. We got all the fly girls. We got all the fly drug dealers. We got all the fly cars. We got all the fly music. You know, we more educated than the rest of these retarded niggas. And so I used to tell him that all the time. We would argue about it because he would say, when I come uptown, only thing I see is pretty girls and snow. And this reminds me of Nebraska. And I used to be like, no, you got to look deeper, baby. We got all the music, we got everything. And so at that time, we did. And, you know, because I keep saying drug dealers, and it's not that I'm glorifying it. It's what I'm doing, giving you a roadway to how we thought what we were thinking about, how we designed Uptown Records. And we had the drug dealers from up our way were in the music. They basically, a lot of them, I'm not saying all of them.
Yeah.
They were educated. They were super smart. They were fashion forward. And they were involved with all the new musicians or, you know, and the people in music. And we had to get in that game. And so we decided, like, we got to start calling somewhere else Uptown. And we started calling Harlem Uptown. And that's how you got Uptown Records. And that's how you got the cat. The cat represents education. It represents a drug dealer. You have the beep. That's what it represents. It represents the gold chain, the beeper, everything, the Nikes. That represents Uptown at the time. And that's what we thought it would be. That's what we thought it looked like. And that's what we sold. And so during that time, we're coming out of college, and there's this kid named Teddy Riley. We already knew about him.
Yeah.
And by Teddy had already produced the show and Lottie Dottie. Right? He produced both of those records. They were smashes. And Dougie Fresh, who had been performing, and him and Andre had became very close in Alonzo in Harlem World, which was a club in Harlem that a lot of these guys, Curtis Blow, Dougie Fresh, Andre, all these guys were performing at and hanging at and being at. And, you know, we went to all the parties in Harlem, the Renaissance Ballroom and all that. And, during that time, Hollywood was just coming up. DJ Hollywood and Busy B and Starsky had already been on the scene. And so all this was going on during that time. And all these people, all these talented people were going on. This is like almost the second wave of rap, because Melly Mel and those guys had already been out. Funky Floor plus one more, and those guys, they already got signed to, what is the records? What's the name of the record company? Their catalog is Chess Checkers and Cadet. And it's they had Sugar Hill on there. The Sugar Hill label. Yes.
Okay.
Sylvia Rome and Joe I forgot his last name, but and those guys had everybody on there that came out first. So they had Jazzy J on there. They had Funky 4 plus one more, Furious 5, Grandmaster Flash, and Grandmaster Melly Mel and the Furious 5 on there. And, they broke the group up and kept going with Flash and Melly Mel when he made the message. So they had a lot of stuff going on. Like basically every rap group that came from Uptown was signed to them.
Sierra Rowan back in the Wow.
Yeah. And so they have a catalog called Chess Checkers and Cadet, which is one of the most extensive catalogs on the planet. Not only because of them signing rap label records, Sylvia was a writer. She wrote for The Moment. She wrote for The Stylistics. She sang she made a song called Pillow Talk. She made Rod Stewart records. She did. And she was not. Her name is not Sylvia Rome. Excuse me. It's Sylvia Robinson.
Oh, not the Electra Sylvia Rome.
Right. It's not Sylvia Rome. Sylvia Robinson and those guys. They had everything. And so here we come. And like I said, we designed the whole Uptown, what it was going to look like, talk like, walk like, be like in a club, on the streets, and in the front office of MCA. And so the way we did that is like, okay, how are we supposed to look? Okay, Wynton Marsalis is a good reference. Wynton Marsalis is a good reference for us. The way he dresses.
Yeah, the jazz.
The way he looks. Yeah. Let's do that. Like, we like the glasses he wears. Alonzo, you wear that. Andre, you wear the suspenders, suit and tie. And this is before we were able to afford any type of real suit or suit and tie. We had very $69 suits and cheap shoes too to go with it, but it was a suit nonetheless. So that's what separated them from everybody else. And Andre's thinking and my thinking and Alonzo's thinking was, okay, so like how do we position this? All right, so we're in Harlem World where everybody got Kango hats on, Adidas sneakers, Puma sneakers, jerseys, and that kind of stuff. And here these guys come in with a suit and tie and Poindexter glasses. And so how do you get respect now? How do you get respect? Because when Andre stepped in the room, he was so articulate that he was like E.F. Hutton. And you could have been a serial killer. You was going to listen to him. And whatever he wanted to sell or have you buy, you definitely was going to buy it. And that was his whole approach to life, because he was so ahead of the curve, and not on his own, because of the people that was around him that helped him carve out the blueprint. The people like myself, the people like Kurt Woodley, the people like the staff at Uptown. You know, these people helped design his image and put him at the forefront of everything, because he was the one that was able to sell the idea, the dream, and the legacy better than anybody. And you have to let the best go first.
Yeah.
And so we started coming out of Lehman College. We start Uptown. I might be getting paid $10 a week. You know, Andre is getting checks to produce Heavy D and the Boys and the Uptown crew. So we get Teddy Riley, basically get in a situation where Teddy Riley sides with us over some of his managers and some of the people that, you know, really dangerous people at the time. And we took Teddy from them and was able to get some music out of him, some incredible music out of him. And the music was called New Jack Swing. And Andre coined the phrase New Jack Swing. Andre came up with the name New Jack Swing. Teddy came up with the music, but Andre created, told him what the sound would sound like, told him how it should look, how it should feel, where this feeling comes from, and Teddy was able to make it. Like you know.
But the question I had then was the getting to MCA. How did you actually manage to even get in the doors of MCA? Because
I'm getting to that.
Oh, you're gonna get that. Okay. Okay.
This is a journey right here. I'm taking you on.
Okay.
I'm taking you on a journey.
Yeah.
And so going back to Lehman College, like I said, we got people that are in the music business that was in Lehman College at that time.
Okay.
So we have Michael Haley, who worked at MCA, which is now Universal.
Yeah.
He was head of R&B promotion, Black promotions. All right. And we have another young lady, her name is Kathy Moore. There's about 100 of us going to Lehman at the time.
Wow.
Music, right. Just Kid and Play went to, Kid from Kid and Play went there. The creator MTV went there. You know, there's just, all kinds of people was just there. You know what I mean? We were in something called student government.
Okay.
So student government, Andre was the first guy out of my crew to be involved with student government and the head of the entertainment program. So the entertainment program had a budget. And in that budget, we bought Miles Davis there to our school, 2,500 seat theater. We bought Prince there.
Wow, Prince.
We bought The Temptations there. We bought James Brown there. We bought
James Brown.
Yeah, we bought the Cold Chillin' crew, Big Daddy Kane, Roxanne Shante, MC Shan, and we bought them there. We bought Eric B. and Rakim there. We bought everybody there. And Andre was a rapper at the time, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So he got to perform with them. So he meets Gerald Busby one day performing at a local, club, and Gerald sees him, and Andre goes to him and starts selling him the vision of Uptown. And at that time, Gerald Busby was the head of MCA Black Music, the most powerful man in the game at that, because he had Luther, he had Jody Watley, he had New Edition, he had just everybody. They had everything, but their music was starting to become stale.
Okay.
It wasn't that it was good; they just didn't have nothing new. He had Men Condition. When Teddy came and Andre came with New Jack Swing, that was a new music. And so when he presented the Uptown Crew to Gerald, we had Teddy Riley on that album. We had Marley Marl on that album, who was a new producer at that time. And I don't know if you know who Marley Marl is. Marley Marl.
Oh, yeah. Big with of LL. Yeah, no, Marley.
LL, Big Daddy Kane, So him and Teddy coming out of the streets were two of the biggest producers on the planet. I mean, in terms of hip hop producers.
Yeah.
And so Gerald listens to the album, says, this is okay. It's great. Gave him a little deal for the album, a compilation album.
Okay.
And he said, if something works off this album, I'll give you a production deal. And so what happened is we had the Uptown Crew, but we put Teddy and Marley and Eddie F did Mr. Big Stuff.
Okay, that's from Heavy D, okay.
Right, so that gave Heavy a top 10 record on the R&B charts. That top 10 record opened the door for Gerald to say, I'm not only going to give you a production deal, I'm going to give you a distribution deal, label deal.
Wow.
And Andre, like I said, all you have to do is give him an opportunity to present his music, present whatever it is he's selling, and you're going to buy it. And next thing you know, Andre has a distribution deal. And then after that, Teddy started producing Heavy's album. The first album came out, we went double platinum.
Wow. Okay.
Most of the Uptown Crew at that time, they didn't make it to, the second single or even a lead single. So they got basically let go. And Heavy was the one that we focused on. And Heavy had a very, very talented individual in his crew that would do all the background singing, and his name was Al B. Shore.
Okay.
So they were giving us some resistance at MCA about giving us autonomy to let us do our thing. So they didn't want to sign Al B. Shore. So we took Al B. Shore to Warner Brothers. Soon after that, Quincy Jones had this contest while he was signing called the Sony Innovator Awards. And we won. And after that, Al's album got completed and he came out with Night and Day and blew up like Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, that was a groundbreaking album. That was, I mean, I was in Africa at the time. And but you said MCA, you presented it to MCA and they said no?
They said no. They said no. They said no. Because you got to remember, this New Jack Swing thing was new to them. They was almost scared of it. They couldn't believe that this kid, Teddy Riley, could be making these hits like this. So after Al's first album was a mixture of Teddy, Kyle West, and Al, and Timmy Gatlin singing the lead vocals with Al's vocals, and vice versa with the Guy album. So when we complete the Guy album, that blows up and does 2-3 million albums. And so now they're listening to everything Andre says.
Okay.
So now him and Gerald are bosom buddies, and anything we want to sign, we can sign. Then, Gerald takes him to Lou Wasserman and Sid Schomburg.
Who was he?
They were the heads of Universal Pictures. They were the head of Universal Pictures, film and TV, music, and anything else, And I've left you.
No, I'm here. I can see.
All right. So they were the head of these film companies and music companies at MCA, when MCA was MCA. And they were two guys that if they took you under their wing, they could put you in a very powerful position. So once Gerald took them to MCA, they go to Andre and say, listen, Andre sells them on film that he has and the music. So they take it, and not only do they give him a deal that was worth $50 million at that time, and this is in 88, 90. Mm-hmm. Not only did they give him a deal, they gave us office on the lot of Universal, gave us a television production company on the lot, offices, and everything like that. And so we get these offices, we make our first film. It was going to be House Party. Oh. If you know, in House Party, most of the artists that are in there are from Uptown. Chill, Bilal, and B. They're all in there. And Groove Be Chill. So they're in there. One is the DJ, the other two are acting in it. And that was a story originally written by Andre Harrell and Alonzo Brown. That's Mr. High, right? So we're getting ready to do that film with the Hudlin brothers. Something happens, the Hudlin brothers wind up with the film. Andre and Alonzo in Uptown is out. Okay, so we move on. And we come out with the second Heavy D album. Now on this album, we got Eddie F producing, which he was producing since the beginning, and he's the DJ for Heavy D and the Boys.
Yeah.
We got Teddy Riley, who's producing, and I don't think Marley was a part of the second album because we had some conflict with him.
Okay.
And so he's out of the Uptown crew. He's going off to do his cold chilling thing and becomes very successful. Marley Marl is one of the greatest producers ever, and so he's not involved with this, but it's us and Teddy Riley. And then Teddy brings this group called Guy into the loop. Like I said, the Guy. And so Aaron is singing on some of Teddy's production on Heavy. And then we put out the second album and we go triple platinum again. And so now Andre is growing in power and the Uptown staff is growing in power. Now we have some sort of power in the building. And then as we put out this album, we start developing this film called Strictly Business.
Okay.
And this film has Holly Berry in it and in it from the beginning, and so I believe Chris Rock was in it. And so we put out this film that does great. So they bring us back to the table to renegotiate a new deal for even more money with staff all over the country and basically giving us our own arm to operate, as our own, giving us autonomy to own entity. And So we on a roll at this point right now, and it just gets better after that. Guy's album did well the first time around. Al's vocals were blended with Timmy Gatlin's vocals. Al did some writing on that. They did some writing on Al's first album. Their first album that came out did at least 2 million albums. Al's album did 3 million albums. And, we are doing great now. We all working together. Everything is lovely. And everything is lovely until the money comes. Everything, we all family. But when the money came, then the energy changed. Everybody wanted to be the boss. And instead of being managed, now everybody wants to be their own manager, their own production company, their own label. And, that's when people were getting record labels. All you had to do was get a one-hit record. The next thing you know, a record label was giving you a label.
Wow.
But everybody's not capable. Everybody's not capable of operating a record label and making a record. And so the thing is that so the confusion starts to come in, but we still on the roll. We still on the roll. Now we begin to sign new acts. Father MC comes in. He does a gold platinum album right out of the box. So, and we got Teddy producing him, and then we have other artists involved with him. Father's the first one that introduced Jodeci on his records, and Devontae Swing and Mary J on his records. That's how they got introduced into the music business, in the game. And so, and the people at that time that were doing the A&R work was Kurt Woodley. And he's a prodigy in itself. And Kurt Woodley is responsible for bringing Mary J. Blige to Uptown Records. Kurt Woodley is responsible for, in the beginning, being in the studio with Jodeci. Kurt Woodley is responsible for being in the studio A&R on Heavy D's album. Kurt Woodley is responsible after he left Uptown for Cypress Hill and the Fugees.
Wow.
So Kurt Woodley is something special in himself. And this is the type of talent and the people that we had around us. And, so as we move on, Alonzo and Andre, like I said, was a part of Strictly Business and writing it. And then we're introducing Jodeci. And Devontae is learning under Eddie F., I'll Be Sure. And Teddy was starting to move away from us. So I don't know how much he learned from Teddy, but I'll Be Sure and Eddie F. had a lot to do with his progression as a producer. And he's one of the greatest producers that have ever come out of Uptown Records. And so you got Devontae emerging as one of the greatest producers and a great producer. And the Jodeci album, he basically produced on his own with some guidance from Al B. Sure and Eddie F. But once he was able to stand up and fly on his own, he did it well. He did it well. And he was amazing at it. And he produced the Jodeci album. When we put that Jodeci album out, half of it was A&R by Kurt, but the rest was A&R by a young man by the name of Puff Daddy, who came into Uptown as an intern. Once Puffy put his seasoning on it, on the first two Jodeci records, and he created, we already had the remix, but he came and perfected it. Oh. He came and made the remix like it was a brand new record. He changed the whole record and made it a whole new record. Like we were able to just make remixes before, but it was very similar to the same record that was put out before.
Yeah,
I can't see you for some reason. Puffy was able to come out and make it a brand new record, a whole nother record. And hold on for a second. No. You can see me?
Yeah, I can see you, yeah.
All right, that's all that matters then.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so Puffy was able to make it a brand new record, like I said.
Yeah.
And create the new form of making the remix. And those remixes sold just as much as the single.
Wow. And
definitely the album, if not more. So, and, you know, like I said, we were selling 3 million albums on Jodeci. And so, you know, he'd have a remix that was sold like 5 million copies, 6 million copies on a single. And so, you know, needless to say, Puffy became a superstar at Uptown. An uncontrollable one, but a superstar nonetheless.
Was he still an intern, or has he been given that taste?
He's the intern moving into being an A&R. And there's about 10 different people taking credit for Puffy even coming to Uptown. And there's another 10 people taking credit for bringing Puffy in the office to Andre, and Andre going, "Get this little black nigga out of my office, man. I don't want to hear that." And you know, I'm one of them, and because he was my intern as well, and he was something special. Wow. Everything he did, he got done quickly.
Wow.
If you asked him to go to the store, he was back in 1 second. If you asked him to make a record, he had it done. And he was asking for his opportunity. When he got his opportunity, he nailed it. He nailed it because he would surround himself with the best people, and the knowledge that we had already have given him, he took that and really studied it and understood it better than anybody, any intern. And we had great interns. We have interns that have come out of Uptown Records and people that have worked there that are billionaires. Wow. So, and it's not just him, and he's definitely one of them. And he's something special from the beginning. Everything he brought to the table, even the bad attitude, good attitude, it was worth it because he put us on the map. And when after Jodeci, Kurt Woodley and Andre had a disagreement, and Kurt had got let go or left, whatever the story is really. But he was managing Mary. Puffy comes in, starts producing Mary, and the rest is history. Kurt might have produced 3 or 4 records on the first album, but the rest of it was Puffy. And after that, him and Mary had a musical marriage that has lasted till today. It was incredible. And I'll tell you this right now, like Mary and Puff, they believed in one another to the point where they are connected forever. They have might as well been married musically, and they're connected forever. He's involved in everything she does because he's the primary reason for her success.
So you guys gave him that much freedom to do the album?
Yes. After the success of Jodeci, we gave him that much freedom to do the album. And boy, did he take the freedom. And run with it. But it was the right thing to do, and it was worth it. And he took it to the point where he was unmanageable. And it couldn't be 2 kings. Andre was Uptown.
Were people looking at Puffy as he's the golden child, or what was that? What
he was the golden child, and he was the young lion ready to come for the throne.
Okay.
You know what I mean? He was the young lion coming for the throne. just like a lion too, savage, savage. And so he was coming for the throne, and he was going to achieve it too. And but he got to the point where he was unmanageable to us, and he had to go. So Andre started a company. I mean, he started a company, Bad Boy, which was under Uptown. It was a production deal, a label deal under Uptown. Okay. Because at that point we could do label deals. And he had his first 2 acts, Biggie Smalls and Craig Mack was on Uptown Records. First 2 records, one Craig Mack's record, I think Flavor in Your Ear, and 2 of Biggie Smalls records, Party and Bullshit, and another record. And he bought Biggie, and that blew up. And then he was totally uncontrollable. And then he got fired. Then he got fired. Yeah, because he was uncontrollable. So Puffy leaves. I'm asking Andre, don't let Puffy leave. Mark Siegel, I said Mark Siegel's, like he is a fleeting bird. But Mark Siegel was the one that was encouraging Andre to fire Puff and telling Andre, because Mark couldn't control Puff at all. Puff didn't have absolutely no respect for him whatsoever. Okay. Okay. Because he was the white man. And he was coming in to break up what we had. And he was adamant about letting Puff go.
More so than yourself and Andre.
More so, me and Puff didn't get along at all. I didn't want him to leave because I didn't want the hits to go, because I was the head of promotion and marketing. I didn't want I wanted the hits to stay. I didn't care if he liked me or I liked him. None of that shit mattered to me. I just wanted to stay in our glory. And he had hit after hit after hit after hit with him there. With him gone, we still had hits, but it wasn't the magnitude of hits that we had while he was there.
What was he doing differently though? Because what did he do?
His talent, and who he learned from. He learned from Eddie F. He learned from Devontae. He learned from Teddy. He would learn, and then he put together his own crew. And actually, the proof is in the pudding. They were better. So when somebody's a genius at what they do and they're smarter than you, the right thing for you to do is to try to manage that for as long as possible, because you can't control it. You have to try to manage that. And I'm going to tell you this. When you have an artist, right, the first record you make with an artist, you're the boss, meaning the production company, the distribution company. You're the boss. The second time record that comes, you guys are equal. Okay. The third hit record, you're getting fired.
So they take over.
They don't need you. They need you for. They got everybody coming at them. Every president, every person is telling them what they could do better for them and offering them more money. So you had a company getting $175,000 a year, and Clive Davis comes and says, "I'll give you $75 million to start your company. I'll give you $75 million. I'll give you $150 million. It don't make no difference to me. I know what you're going to roll out over here." So we allow that situation to get away from us because we weren't smart enough. The egos got involved. Egos got involved, and in this game of entertainment, because I'm in music, I do music through film right now, and I'm in the film business right now. There's no ego. You got to get to work, and you're dealing with brilliant people and creative people, and a lot of them are smarter than you. And how do you outsmart someone that's smarter than you? You have to try to, and your ego can't, and your pride and all that bullshit can't be in the, Puffy had said things to me that made me want to kill him. but not to the point where I want to see the hits go.
Yeah.
I don't want the hits to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing about it is we're talented. Andre is very talented creatively. Like I said, I'm a wordsmith. I made up words that were on records that I should have got publishing for. And it's true. I had every single one of my artists, including Puffy, talking like me, walking, dressing, everything. And that's just the truth. And that's why I can say it freely. But none of that matters when they're able to take your gift and apply it to their gift and make it bigger.
Yeah.
And make it bigger. So what you have to do is, because Andre has a gift that nobody has. And then Puffy has a gift that nobody has. And I have a gift that nobody has. But it's not, you know, Puffy got the total package. And that's why he's a billionaire right now. And I'm over here to borrow some money. I'm trying to phrase things properly so that I don't upset him at all.
Yeah. Goodness. But during those times, because I know you said you were head of promotion, so because when he left Uptown, it was big industry news. I mean, everyone heard, oh, Puffy is gone. But then within the label, did it feel like something big had happened, or did you think, well, we've got Jodeci, we've got Mary, we've got Heavy, we still have all the acts? So what was it like?
We still had the acts, but Puffy had total control over Mary at that time. So she was on Uptown, but he was making it seem like she was on Bad Boy. You see what I mean? And then he was building his roster off. Mary had helped platform Biggie, which didn't need much platforming, but she was a part of a lot of songs that Biggie were on, and it was more like she was a Bad Boy artist. You know what I mean? And when Puffy left, he left with a lot of my promotional staff, my marketing staff. He left with a lot of people that were working with him at Uptown. You know what I mean? And he made a real power move. And also, you know, when he left, we didn't stutter step at all. We came out with Soul For Real, Lost Boys, but they ain't Biggie Small. You know what I mean? Then we started having problems with Jodeci, with Suge Knight. You know, he started managing them, and it was hectic. And then Mary and KC broke up, and Suge Knight was in the middle of it, wanting publishing from the first record ever at Uptown, not even from Jodeci's record, just whatever. He came with his bullshit. And you know, we had went through 3 or 4 different gangsters like that. You know, Gene Griffin came with Ted, and we had issues with Gene. So, you know, we were accustomed to that type of shit. And, you know, we from Uptown anyway. So, you know, we had to leave Harlem to move to 4th Avenue and Warren Street in Brooklyn because we were going to have problems just about Teddy Riley. So we've been through this more than once, trust me.
Yeah, no, I mean, loads of people sent questions, but how did that, I mean, what was more disruptive? Was it the Gene Griffin sort of pull with the whole guy and Timmy Gatlin stuff? Was that very disruptive, or was it the Jodeci Mary? Which one did you think really impacted?
I think both of them caused a major threat. So we thought, not really, but we were used to being in the entertainment business where we had avoided any of that gangster shit. You know, we didn't have those guys. They didn't get invited to our parties. They didn't get invited to absolutely anything. You know what I mean? So even when we did major deals and they would come and be like, yo, you know, I can make your deal better. Let me negotiate. Absolutely not. And like I said, like when you're dealing with a genius and you coming with some street bullshit, you're not on his level. He's dealing several rails above you.
Yeah.
You know, Andre, and I'm speaking about Andre, and I'm not even speaking about me. He, like I said, we would come in a club or a business meeting with, you know, gangster managers and shit like that.
Yeah.
And when Andre spoke, he's speaking several rails above them. They don't even have nothing to say when he's speaking.
Yeah.
You know, they're not on his level. Like, and so when you with a really smart person and you're not on their level, there's nothing you can say. You got to sit there and learn. That's the smartest thing to do, is be quiet.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that he taught me. Like, you know, don't feel uncomfortable about not knowing something. Just shut the fuck up and listen and learn. Look, listen, and learn.
But you guys grew up as friends, and he was still being a mentor, even though you guys grew up as...
We were like, both of us were like each other's father. That's like my son, and I'm like his son. You know, and that's the best way I could explain it with because I knew him since I was 9 years old. Yeah. And he was my cousin Gabe's best friend. And my cousin Gabe could dance like Michael Jackson, sing like Michael Jackson. And at that time, he, you know, it just didn't work out with him. And me and Andre wound up becoming best friends. So when we would go on the road, when he was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Alonzo would be in the room getting dolled up, looking pretty. And me and Andre would be downstairs taking care of the business. And I would be learning from Andre in terms of business, because it was a natural thing, innate with him, with business and public speaking and speaking in general.
Yeah,
you know, he's at another level. And this is where Puffy learns everything he knows. And it comes from not only Andre, but me and all the people at Uptown, because Andre surrounded him with all these people to make sure that he got educated up where he could, and he took it to another level. You know, it's not like, no, I'm not talking like we're the sole reason that he's successful. He was going to be successful. Well, I don't know if he was going to be this successful if he didn't know us. Because we set him on that path. And introduced him to the people that he needed to know and surrounded him with the people that he needed. And like I said, Andre didn't accomplish this all on his own. He wasn't this genius guy that didn't have anybody giving him different information every day. He was smart enough to surround himself with people that were specialists at what they did. You know what I mean?
How did you get this? How did your role get decided when you guys started Uptown?
Andre picked it out for me.
Okay.
Andre was like, I said, oh no, Andre, I want to be an A&R. He said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. What I want you to do is I want you to go on the road and sell these records. I want you to be the one that go in the record store. You know, I want you to be the one that sits at the meeting at UMCA and explain what the blueprint is of Uptown and how it's going to roll out, how the music is going to roll out, and how we're going to sell it. Because we talk about our blueprint is totally different than theirs. They have a very, you know, traditional way of working records. My thing was, we taking it straight to the streets. Taking it straight to the streets with street people. And if you were even able to come to one of our parties or anything, that's because you was fly. And it didn't matter what you was, drug dealer, gangster, college professor, basketball player, football player, and a boxer, you know, whatever. You was invited. Donald Trump, you know what I mean? We had Bruce Willis at our parties, you know. We created Andre created the white parties. I'm not going to say we created. It was Andre's idea. Andre was the one who brought Russell Simmons and everybody to the Hamptons, because we were going to Martha's Vineyard at first. You know what I mean? And Andre was like, no, this is what the Great Gatsby, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to look like. This is how the parties need to look. And this is, you know, but everything, the Great Gatsby. You know what I mean? That was Andre.
Now, some of the questions that some of the people who put in, knowing that you were coming on, was how did MCA come to corner the black music market? Because I know you mentioned they had New Edition, but then when they got Uptown, it was almost as if pretty much I actually used to think MCA was a black label. But you know, what do you think they did differently to sort of corner the market in those?
They weren't a black label. They were never a black label. I can tell you that right now. They had country music. They had country music stars selling 21 million albums at the time. Black music was selling 1, 2, 3 million. If you ever reached 10 million, which we never did on one artist, Puffy sold 10 million albums before on himself. Biggie sold 10 million albums. We never did that. And MCA was never the black music label. We had a black music division headed up by Gerald Busby. Lou Salas was one of the A&Rs, the head of A&R on the West Coast, and Timmy Regisford was the A&R on the East Coast, head of A&R. So, but quite frankly, you know, they didn't make the kind of music we made. Our shit was new. We like Motown. We like Motown, and we got bigger than all of that. You know, and Jody Watley was huge, and Loose Ends was huge, and they had huge records. You know what they didn't have? They didn't have a group of artists that made lifestyle records, that made records that represented a company. And the representation is like you look like, walk like, talk like Uptown. And the thing is that if you talk to Al B. Shore, he'll tell you what I mean by saying that. If you talk to Devontae or you know, any of these artists, and even Mary and Puff, they'll tell you what I mean by that. We created a lifestyle in black music that went on to pass it on to Bad Boy. Bad Boy passed it on to Rockefeller, and you know, so on and so on. There wouldn't even be most of these artists that are still going today. Rodney Jerkins, a lot of these producers or whatever, their influence was Uptown.
Yeah, I mean, you guys definitely. I mean, and I would assume that the sounds, say, when New Edition, so Belle Biv DeVoe, and all that, based on what you guys were doing, they start to change their sounds and everything.
Yeah, they had to come to you know, when we're doing New Jack. And then, you know, when we're doing hip hop and R&B soul. And then, you know, Grown and Sexy. And we did that all the way. We kept having hit records. It wasn't that we weren't having hits. Like I said, we had Soul For Real. We had Father MC was still there. He was still doing gold, platinum albums. We had Lost Boys.
Yeah,
Monifa. That's when Heavy took over.
Okay,
and when my girl, she was dope. She was dope. Like Heavy, we left Heavy and we started Harrell Entertainment, New America. We left Uptown, we left Uptown. We went to Motown, which was a wrong move for us.
Yeah. Now, so I wanted to get to that because I remember, because I used to read the Billboard magazines, and I remember seeing from Uptown to Motown, and I saw this little cigar and a chair and everything in the promotion. And
but Andre lost his mind at that point, right there.
I was like, and I was like, why? No, I mean, because you know, it was almost like going from taking your Ferrari and going into an old tanker, because Motown it was established, but it wasn't. It might have been more money and stuff, but it just felt like you had to change too much stuff, and I don't know how much. Was he influenced by, wow, look what Puffy's doing so quickly. Maybe I need to move up. But what was the decision? How did that whole come about?
That played a part of it. I mean, the Motown deal came. We were successful, but we were locked in the MCA. They had a major, probably the majority share of Uptown, you know, a lot of it. And basically, we had ran our course at Uptown, and Andre made the wrong decision of going to Motown because he thought about the legacy that was there, and he thought that he could bring some new energy there. But you know, this is all politics. When you get over there, you gotta work the politics out first before you could even have a clean slate to operate. We didn't have the autonomy to move around like we did at Uptown, but we had more money to move around. One, we didn't have the acts to support that move. We had to start still working Stevie Wonder. There's no disrespect to him, Diana Ross, and all that kind of stuff.
Temptation,
and that wasn't even our genre of music. We listened to that music like we listened to Marvin Gaye. It was incredible. It's the best music on the planet, but it ain't our music. And it's just like with these kids today, you know, a lot of this mumble rap and whatever other kind of track, whatever. We wouldn't be able to work that properly. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to be there. You got to be a part of it. You got to live it. And that's why we were so successful, because we were a part of it and we were living it. We lived the lyrics. We lived the creative process. It was like everything. I'll tell you this, even the worst days at Uptown was a party.
Wow. The
worst days was the best days. After Gene Griffin slapped the shit out of Andre, we went out and partied like it was 1999.
Okay. Now, I saw Andre's one of his last interviews with Kenny Burns, and he mentioned how he was in an apartment with his girl, and Gene comes to the house at like 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning, and says, "I want to publish it," and Teddy's outside in the car. And, you know, he just, signs it over to him. But, we heard this kind of thing.
That ain't true. That ain't true. I mean, he signed a portion of it over. And when he came to his house, Andre, like I said, when you're dealing with smart guys, you got to remember, they're tougher than any gangster that has ever lived. A smart guy, somebody that's super intelligent, will outsmart you and belittle you at the same time, because that smack that he gave Andre that day in that office was the worst thing. He might as well have resided to doing construction after that. Okay, and then when they came to his house with Teddy in the car, Andre, I want the publishing from this. Got it. What else you need? The publishing from this, and this. Got it. What else you need? The publishing from that, and that. Got it. As soon as I get in the office, first thing in the morning, sign everything over to you. Got in the office, call the lawyers. Fuck them. That's what. Fuck him. Throw me out a window next time, nigga. I'm not giving up shit until it's the right way to give it up. And if you look at it, they say that Teddy and them went off and started their own record label. Look at every album that they put out at Universal. It says Uptown imprint, small Uptown imprint. You know what that means? Uptown is getting paid.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I learned that dealing in the record business, these guys don't have to be tough. You just have to be smart.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, but how much did the Suge Knight thing influence the move to Uptown? That whole sense where you felt, well, Puffy is gone, Mary and Jodeci were looking like they were going over to Suge. How much did I feel like we're losing a family? Let's just take the offer and go.
We just kept bringing in new artists, but we were definitely, we've definitely been, we were shook. It was disturbing. It was terrible. It was terrible. And Suge was a imposing, threatening guy, but he didn't know, like, none of that shit bothered us. None of that mattered. Because at the end of the day, when you look at it, what actually happened to anybody? Nothing. He's the one in jail. at the end of the day. I mean, Andre passed away, but when all of it was over, you weren't even on anybody's mind. And what he did to Jodeci is basically disrupt their creative flow and destroy it.
Yeah, because they didn't recover after that. The style went off.
And Mary left with Puff. You know what I mean? Mary went off and started making her own records with Puff and without Puff.
Yeah. When the decision came when the Motown opportunity came, did you guys have a discussion and say, "Yep, let's go," or did you think, "Wait over"? What was it for both of you?
Andre wanted to go because he thought that, you know, MCA had a noose around his neck, but Universal is MCA, so it was a bad move to go to Motown. And Mark Siegel, of course, was like, "Yeah, we should go." You know what I mean? Because he don't really care about the label. He cares about the check. And, you know, Andre's looking at it like, you know, I don't want to be here no more. I don't want to be here no more. But he wasn't thinking clearly. And people had told him. Everybody told him. A lot of people had told him. But he wasn't listening because they had the check in his face. And it was a way he thought that he could start anew, fresh. But he went, like you said, to an old car. He went from a fresh, brand new Ferrari to an old tanker.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was devastated.
We went. I mean, it was whack. It was whack from the beginning. Like, it's just the whole communication, because they finally had total control of him. And that's what they wanted to do. And they want him to start working on the Temptations and this, that, and that. I think, come on.
No, and you know, you're right. I mean, and that's the one thing about, they did have the legacy artist, but he was used to bringing in the new from the streets.
Right.
And that's what.
And because of the new and from the streets, when I went to radio, I didn't have to say nothing. They just had to see that Uptown imprint, and they would put it on, and it's gone.
Yeah. And I think, you see, you guys started something that everyone else did. So when you look at Cash Money, No Limit, and Bad Boy, LaFace, they looked at the imprint and it's like, oh, this is a new artist from LaFace or Cash Money or Murder Inc. Before that, you know, no one really thought, oh, there's a new MCA act. Maybe some of the radio stations, but the public didn't know. But when, you know, Uptown had the Cats and had, like, the artists were all under that banner. And I think as fans, we kind of associated Uptown with a style of music, and we bought into that. And I think everyone else followed that blueprint. But I think going to Motown, it had its legacy stuff back in the 60s and maybe 70s. But by the 90s, I mean, they didn't really, I don't know who, I mean, they had Today and they had Basic Black with Gene Griffin, but they really didn't explode.
And that was Gerald Busby went to Motown, and it hurt his legacy. You know what I mean? I mean, he had hit records. He had Johnny Gill, Basic Black, and Today, but they weren't no breakthrough acts. They weren't no, you know, I mean, and I love Big Bub, and, you know, but they weren't about that music. That's why they couldn't. And Gene Griffin wasn't about that music. He didn't know no. Teddy was the hit. Teddy was the hit. And by that time, Teddy's, I'm not saying he's fading because he did Michael Jackson's album. And so he was incredible, but he wasn't making those street records. He wasn't making those Devontae Swing records. Jodeci. He wasn't making those Puff Daddy. He wasn't the man no more like he was during the New Jack Swing era.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't the man until he made those Michael Jackson records.
Yeah, that takes it to another level. But then, so when someone asked the question, after Gerald Busby moved, it seemed like MCA didn't support Uptown. How come?
They did. I mean, because we were rolling over them. Everything was going, and they didn't want us to go to pop radio. They didn't want us to do pop, you know, anything that had to do with pop that would take our records to the next level. They tried to hold us back, and it was a constant fight. with them trying to hold us back, telling us that we should just stay in this black music category. First of all, I wasn't listening to anybody. I wasn't listening to Andre or nobody else. When I went to go radio or anywhere else, I went wherever I wanted to. You know what I mean? And it would cause a major problem.
But they're making money though, aren't they making money?
But they, you know, you got to understand the bureaucratic bullshit that goes on. People usually at a record company are trying to protect their job because they're out of touch. They know they're out of touch. And here comes this new company, fresh, with fire. And they can't, if they let you out of the cage, you know, you can't control. It's like Puffy. You can't control them.
Okay. You
can't control them. Like, and now the spotlight is on you. The spotlight is on you to, like, what are you really doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These guys, we're holding these guys back, and they're still going quadruple platinum.
But then go ahead.
We got Jody Watley, and she's doing $1 million. We got whoever we got, they're doing $1 million. 500,000. These guys come out with a new group even after Puffy leaves, and they're like Michael Jackson, so for real, and they do 2 million albums. Heavy D's group do 2 million albums right out of the rip.
Mm.
Because we got relationships on the street that they don't have with producers. Music is on the streets. It develops. You get your swag, you get your fucking creative flow from the streets, from the people that you're interacting with. For like the dude that is coming from the basketball court and he got a certain kind of sneakers on, or the guy that is a drug dealer that got a bow tie and a blazer on, but he's hiding the fact that he's a drug dealer. Or, you know, the college professor that works at CUNY, whatever, that likes to go to the nightclubs and get with the chicks and buy champagne, you know, but you're in his class on Monday morning, but all of these things intertwined together. The nightclub owners, you know, it's just everything. It's on the streets. Like, you got to be outside for that. You can't be up in Beverly Hills or in Universal in Hollywood somewhere and be up on a hill making those kind of records. No, you're going to make damn near classic, traditional records that are good, but they don't have no feeling, and there's no pulse, and there's no drive to bring it all together as a company, as a representation, as a crew, you know, as you know, everybody in your crew. You got 100 people working for you. They all walk, talk, look alike damn near, and they're pushing your vision constantly. Yeah. The artists look like you. They talk like you. The staff looks like you. They talk like you. And the staff is more stars than more stars than the artists are.
Yeah, but they had. I mean, the executives became big stars, and I think Suge Knight presented that when he said the executive is dancing on your records and stuff. But the question that I had, because I've got a lot of questions, but I wanted to find out about you've when Gerald Busby goes to Uptown and Motown, then is it after he left is when the opportunity came for Andre?
Right.
Okay. And you decided, yep, I'm coming with you, or you didn't think, well, let me stay and take over Uptown?
Well, I wasn't offered it. Heavy was offered. Puffy had left. Heavy was offered Uptown. And Heavy wanted me to come with him to Uptown, but my loyalty to Andre, I was never going to not be with Andre.
Okay.
Hello. I was never not going to, wherever he was going, I was going, you know, and that's how it goes, you know. Even till today, before he passed away, you know, I talked to him the day before he passed away. And whenever because I work in California, I live in New York, but I work in California. So, you know, I work with the Hughes brothers.
Okay,
and I work with Alan Hughes in particular. And so I'm out there and we're shooting the film. Right now I'm doing the Tupac and Afeni bio doc right now.
Wow.
And we're just coming off of the Defiant Ones, the story of Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre. Won a Grammy for that.
Oh, okay. So that you're doing movie and filming.
Right. And we're moving into getting ready to do Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary right now as I speak.
Wow.
So I got all that going on. But I'm talking with Andre about the up and coming BET 6-part series he wants to do on BET about Uptown. Yeah. And we're in his house with the writers, you know, and we wrote out the whole history of Uptown, him and I. And we got, you know, information from other people, but it's like, it was me and him since we were 9 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and so, I mean, there can't even be a story written about Andre without me being in it.
Yeah.
You could try. You know what I mean? But, you know, and like I said, I'm not mad at anybody doing the story. Everybody, because Henry Louis Gates Jr. said, don't get mad at anybody for doing a story or writing a story about whatever they want to write about, even if it's about you. If you want to tell the truth or you have something to say, write your own story.
Yeah.
Do your own. And that's exactly what I'm doing.
So are you involved with Uptown Forever that's on BET?
Right now, we still, I was involved, and we still trying to figure out if there's a way for me to fit in the way I feel I need to be fitted in. If not, then they can go ahead and do it, and all praises, because I'm doing something about the history of Uptown music. And that doesn't just entail Uptown. It entails how this whole thing got to where we at today, from where we came from to where we are today. Because me and Andre are at the forefront of pushing that whole thing together.
Yeah. So, so I'm just going to run off a list of questions that people sent in. The first one they said is, which artist was the easiest to work with at Uptown?
None of them.
The easiest.
I tell you my favorite artist.
Okay, who's your favorite?
Heavy D.
Okay.
If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have even been on a plane. I wouldn't even been on an airplane if it wasn't for Heavy success.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he was my favorite. The other question.
And that's my brother. I knew him in Eddie F and the Uptown, in the Heavy D and the Boys, G-Wiz, Trouble T. Roy. I knew them since they were 16 years old.
Wow. That's
when they started.
Yeah. I'm interviewing G-Wiz next week. So, but yeah.
And Eddie F that's a genius. He had every piece of equipment, everything. And me and him were so close that we lived across from each other and we drove the same Jeep. At the same time, that both of us, a Cherokee fire red Jeep with yellow rims.
My goodness, yellow rims. Okay.
And we lived in a place called Cross Creek on Jones Road in Inglewood, a townhome. So, and he had every piece of equipment. He's the first one to go on stage to have like a whole setup of production for a rap group.
Wow. He's very quiet and unassuming, but you don't realize behind the scenes how the difference
he taught Puff, him and Al B. Shore. He taught Al B. Shore. He studied under Teddy, but he's just as good. I don't know if he's as, I don't know. Teddy is in the league by itself, but Eddie, we would talk like Andre and myself would talk, and we would talk about him starting a label deal. So he started this label called Untitled, and he had Pete Rock, CL Smooth under it. But his production staff, he had Pete Rock, he had Dave Hall, he had all these other producers that have created triple platinum albums, Mariah albums, just everything. He did everything.
Wow.
So, and people don't know that, you know, and I remember bringing him, he knew Gerald Busby, but, you know, like I said, he was shy and everything. So when Gerald went over to Motown, I brought him to Motown.
Oh, he did say he went to, yeah.
Yeah, so I went over to Motown and I reintroduced him to Gerald because, you know, and Gerald wound up giving him a single deal. I mean, giving him a shot to produce Johnny Gill's Rub You the Right Way and something, The Red Dress, whatever. And that both of those records blew up crazy. And then after that, Gerald gave him a label deal at Motown called Untouchables.
Wow. My goodness. The other question they had is, what happened to Nestor Valguez's album?
That was my man. That was the Boricua on the label. He came there through my man, Ricky Gidron. And quite frankly, Andre just ain't understand Nesto and his power and how strong he was and how strong it made the label to have a Latin king like that be on the label. And Andre didn't understand it because Andre, one thing he represented what he represented, and that's hip hop and R&B. And he didn't understand the power of a Latin king like Nesto. Because I mean, that Nesto would have took us over the top. If we would have caught a hit with Nesto, it would have been we would have owned MCA.
Wow. Did you do an album but not release it, or
he did an album, and I think one single got released, and then controversy came. And you know, a good friend of mine's, Ricky Gidron, his father and his family. I like to call them the first family of the Black community coming from Chicago. They had a big car dealership across the country, and it's called Dick Gidron Cadillacs and Lincolns, and they had everything. And he brought Nesto to the because him and I, he used to take me to all the Latin parties downtown, and he would tell Andre about, you know, Latin artists and signing Latin artists and play a lot of Latin records for us. And, you know, Andre, he likes it, you know, but that's not what he represented. And
okay.
But Nesto was one of the great artists, a great, amazing singer. And, you know, I really wish it could have worked.
Yeah. Horace Brown, they asked about Horace Brown or Rooney Henson.
Horace Brown and Ronnie Henson. Ronnie Henson came. Let me just say about Horace, who's incredible from North Carolina, you know, where Anthony Hamilton came from North Carolina.
Yeah.
Jodeci came from North Carolina.
Wow.
You know, so Horace Brown, he came, well, like I said, at the end where we were in turmoil. We were getting ready to go. We were negotiating to go to Motown. So he got caught up in that. So he was signed to Uptown briefly, but wind up being the lead artist on Motown. And when he had good records, but we didn't have time to develop those records properly because we were dealing with the bullshit of the bureaucratic bullshit of record labels and didn't have time to really focus on the records. And we didn't have the staff, it didn't gel yet because we had to intertwine with the Motown staff that was already there. So we're in the process of figuring out who we're going to keep and who's going to leave, who's going to be hired, who's going to, you know, and then quite frankly, I wasn't running the promotional staff, which was a big problem. That at first they asked me to come back, but I had got a label deal and I was just basically consulting Andre at that time.
Wow. Okay. And I think the other questions were...
and without me running the point on that, it's all fucked up.
Well, yeah, as I said, it was a shame that you guys left. The other question they asked is why Christopher Williams' albums wasn't more successful. I mean, one of my all-time favorite songs is All I See, but I'm surprised it didn't go double or triple platinum.
Well, you know the stories. So I know you know the stories. That's why you asking me the question, and you know I'm honest and giving you an honest answer. And you know, Chris is like family to me.
Did you went to high school?
I knew him before high school. I knew when Chris was 10, 11 years old, 8 years old, and he's younger than me. And so, you know, we come from the same projects, even more projects, Uptown in the Bronx, him and I. We come from the same neighborhood, Valley, Co-op City. When he moved to private home down the hill from the projects, I moved to another project, Boston Secor, and he's like my younger brother. We both came up hustling in the streets, you know, and I'm gonna say this straight up. Chris is like Adonis. He's one of the prettiest, most charismatic men I ever seen in my life, and especially as a child. So at 11 years old, Chris had women 40 years old, 35 years old, taking shopping, buying this, buying that. He would dress like a grown man. He was, like I said, he's an Adonis at 11. All right. And I never knew Chris could sing. And, you know, we both grew up around a lot of gangsters, that's for sure. A lot of tough people. He's tough. And what happened is, when I found out Chris could sing, I would be telling Andre about, yo, got this light-skinned kid, but a wavy nigga with curly hair. This nigga's, and he could sing like Teddy Pendergrass. Okay. And Andre was like, yo, bring him down, because that's part of our culture too. You know, like we want these pretty people around us. And he's going, because you know why? He's going to bring the chicks. Yeah. and he's very masculine. And I'm not saying Al B. Sure wasn't masculine, but he wasn't the same kind of masculine as Chris. He wasn't that Northeast Bronx, Uptown Harlem masculine. Al B. Sure was more of Westchester, soft-spoken, still masculine, but it wasn't that. It wasn't no Christopher Williams masculine. But Chris couldn't sell records like Al B. Sure could sell, but he could sell those Teddy Pendergrass records that we needed to be sold. Mm. He fucked up and was unmanageable and was disruptive and didn't do the right thing and destroyed his own opportunity at Uptown to win. Mm. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Because as I said, the album was good, the singles were dope, but I guess it's the promotional side of
the album was incredible.
Yeah.
The album, we were getting ready to take his record #1. Chris did everything in his power to destroy that. Didn't show up to a promotional date, everything.
Wow. And back in those days, because it's a little bit different now with the social media.
It makes a break. It'll make or break you.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't show up to several things. I'm not even, maybe on the next interview, I'll just go detail.
Yeah,
detail them out.
It's just, the question that came in. Another question they asked was, what's your opinion about the record industry today? Do you think, would Uptown have survived in this type of environment, how it is now? Absolutely, but I think that it's a different game today. It's a different game, and one of the things you got to understand is it's much different than when we were operating. We couldn't operate like the way we were today, because today you have to be a part of the artist. So when you bring an artist to a company, one, you got to have 3-4 million streams already. Mm. And with that comes $65 million, like Cardi B is getting a single, all right? Mm. Okay, now, if you just come with an artist that can sing today and go talk about you're not getting signed, you will get, like Jill Scott right now, I'm not trying to say anything bad, she can't get $25,000 right now for marketing or a record.
or anything from a company like Universal. Cardi B could get 60 million a single right now.
Wow.
And the reason why is because, you know, they have no interest in R&B records like that. That kind of music, they have no interest. These kids, they're not going to buy it. And adults, they don't want to buy it. They'll buy a single. They're not going to support the artist. And so if the artist is not going on tour, they're not making money because they're not making any money off their records.
Wow.
Because they're going to, a Jill Scott record, you might sell 100,000 copies right now on a single. You got somebody like Little Uzi or Boozy or Woozy or whatever his name is. He put out a single and make $60 million off of it.
Wow.
And get 500 million streams.
So it's a different game, and so is it the
totally different game? Totally different game. You're not getting signed off of talent. You're getting signed off of how many followers you have, how many streams you have. That's what it is. Kim Kardashian makes more money than any artist, period. Record artist, period. She makes more money than Justin Bieber. She don't sing a word. It's just, her street just streams. She gets paid.
Wow.
It's a different game.
Yeah. The other question was...
and these new artists are in control of their publishing more so than we were back then. They get everything. There are no masters now. There's no big giant tapes. Masters is digital. So I own that. I'm owning everything. They don't even know what they're asking to own. They know that you're supposed to own everything. That when we were doing it, Universal will not let you own everything. You're not owning everything. You're not even owning 5% of your shit.
Wow. So is the power shifting to the artist in a sense?
The power shifting to the artist and the producer and the writer. If they know what they, if you don't know what you're doing, if you take an advance and they say, well, you know, I'll give you $2 million, $3 million, and then you take it and then, you know, just sign over your publishing to me and your rights to me, you fucked yourself. But most of these artists, they heard the tragedy stories already. You know, they heard the locks. They heard all the stories already. They're not doing that. Cardi B is coming in the room like, I own everything. I own my name. I own, license my name. I copyrighted it. And instead of you guys giving me 4 cents a stream, I want 25 cents, or else I'm not doing shit.
Wow.
Jill Scott can't come in there, and Erykah Badu can't come in. They can't demand that. Jodeci can't come in. They can't. They don't care. They're like, I'm not. I'd rather you not be on my label.
Yeah, just because they're not going to get the streams because no one's going to be interested. I mean, Cardi B can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The other question they asked was the now when you did the TV show New York Undercover, did you get involved with that as well? The New York Undercover.
Andre did that. That was Andre and Alonzo's idea, and I think Alonzo got moved out of it some kind of way. I was involved with the music part of it.
Okay.
And that's it. You know, Andre didn't have the power that he had, and he had a production staff. He had a staff that he had working with the film side, but they didn't necessarily have the relationship with the artists.
Okay.
To get the artists on there. So Andre, that's what he would come to me for, to help with getting the artists on the television show. And then Dick Wolf and them just finagled him out of that completely. Yeah.
How did you get Guy to reform, to do a single, Tell Me What You Like, on that album? Because a lot of us were like...
There was television. Everybody want to be on TV.
So they got Teddy and Aaron and David to all agree to come together. Wow.
Yep. Television.
Because that, unfortunately, that was, you know, for all of us who was like, because Teddy was doing Blackstreet, all of a sudden we seen a Guy single, and it just was like, and there was no real promotion about it, but that was a big thing.
Oh, they never did. Guy, that was their biggest problem. They never did promotion. They never completed a real concert. I mean, tour, excuse me. You know? They never completed nothing.
I always used to think that Guy was on Uptown, but they just felt like they weren't, you know, Jodeci, Mary, Fart MC, they felt like they were Uptown in the family. For some reason, Guy...
Well, they fell out because of Gene and Teddy. Aaron didn't want to go, you know. Damien didn't want to go. It was Gene and Teddy.
Okay. So they were on Uptown, but they just seemed like they were very independent.
Right.
Another question somebody asked me about the Polo Ground record label and the JLuvs Entertainment Group and the barbershop.
Right. So all of that was a you know, subsidiary of Andre Harrell.
Okay.
And it was because Andre Harrell that I was able to do that. But at the same time, it was Andre was the one stagnating me at the same time, because Andre just wanted me to do marketing and promotion. And he was trying to get me to come back when Motown was in turmoil, to come back and help him uplift the label, because he knew that I could come back with the right music and get the ball rolling again immediately.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't. So I went on to create Polo Ground and JLuvs Entertainment. The JLuvs Entertainment was the management arm. Polo Ground was the label. And Polo Ground, we started at Uptown. That Andre had given me a label at Uptown, and it was Polo Ground.
Okay.
And named it Polo Ground. And Polo Ground is because it's Uptown Harlem. The Negro Leagues played there. If you do your history research, the Ruckers is there.
Okay.
And that's what we were about. So I named my company Polo Ground. And so Polo Ground was that. And I named it after the projects too, because that's where the baseball field was there. So my logo was like a project sign. When you go uptown to the project, you see Polo Ground. It's a blue and orange sign and shit. And so I called it that. And my first artist was on there was Anthony Hamilton.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I had a producer called George Pearson, who produced all the records with Poke and Tone, Trackmaster.
Okay. Trackmaster, yeah.
Yeah, they produced so many records with them. And we actually produced the only hit that came out of Motown, which is Stilo from 702.
Yeah, 702. Yeah. So
and then, so I opened up a barbershop because I'm from Uptown, and that, you know, haircuts mean everything. Haircuts are everything. And if you had a fucked up haircut, Andre would hate you for life. He looked at your head and your head was fucked up. He was like, I hate that nigga. And we always would talk about the kind of haircuts and everything was. So I opened up a barbershop, and I'm like a barber. I know how to cut. I hired people. I showed them how to do hair. I learned how to do hair, dye, all this kind of stuff. Before all these guys started putting all this Beijing in their hair and dyeing their hair, I was learning how to do that 25 years ago.
Wow.
And now all these guys got dye in their skull. They're trying, you know, they got a new style of haircut where you can give a guy a wig and cut some waves in their hair, and they can have a hairpiece for a day or two. And, you know, and also, I opened the barbershop as a marketing arm to bring the whole area that I was in was the film district. And so all the Broadway plays are around there. all the films. It was the film district and the music district.
Yeah.
So it was Motown and Universal was in Worldwide Plaza.
Okay.
I lived in 350 Worldwide Plaza, and my barbershop was at 729 between 9th Avenue, 8th Avenue, and 9th Avenue. And it was called JLuvs Spot. And I would shut down the whole block and give barbecues and free haircuts and, you know, for hospitals and everything like that. And everybody would come. Hillary Clinton came to my shop and got her hair done in front of a bunch of men. You know, Tyra Banks, just everybody, like Mike Tyson, this person, every artist that you can name, every executive that you can name, every financial billionaire, everybody came to my shop. You know what I mean? Every designer, Tommy Hilfiger, this person, that person, Puff, everybody. So everybody, and I'm one of the original guys that started, you know, you gotta pay to look good, baby. I'm gonna make you look good. I'm gonna teach you how to steam your face, dye your hair, cut your hair right. And it's gonna cost you $125. And I started that. Expensive haircuts and also bringing people together just to talk in my shop. And when you came in it, it was a whole history of music and Broadway and Hollywood in there. And it's not just a black shop, you know what I mean? I wanted to make it a shop where like minds could come together and express. And, you know, there were films shot in there. A lot of people started barbershops as a result of doing that. A lot of, you know, like when you look at LeBron James, The Shop, all those concepts come from me.
Yeah.
And the thing about it though is I'm not trying to say anything bad because I love it. They can't do it right because it's not authentic. And that's what was special about my shop. Now the thing that would have taken my shop to another level is me selling products. Not haircuts, products, because the beauty business is a $30 billion, $40 billion business. It is not off of haircuts or anybody doing hair. It's off of products.
Okay.
So you got it. And you know, when you educate somebody, they learn and then they move on. They do the Puff Daddy.
Yeah.
They go and open up 3 or 4 shops. But the thing about it is most people, they don't think you have to be in the right place. It doesn't matter if you go to Brooklyn, Queens, or the Bronx. None of that shit is Manhattan.
Yeah.
None of that shit is in the heart of the film business, the music business. That's where you want to be, or the financial business.
But is it true that when you closed the shop that you broke everything that you couldn't take with you?
Absolutely not. I wish I did.
Okay.
You know, if you would have told me that years ago, I wish I would have blown that motherfucker up because I didn't own them. What's true is that what it taught me was don't ever do anything. You don't ever. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Don't ever rent anything or lease anything. Own everything. You don't have no landlord telling you whether you can play loud music or not loud, or the people in your shop are talking too loud because you live upstairs. Yeah, that's ridiculous. You got to be an owner, a boss. If you don't own shit, you're not shit. You're an employee.
And was that the case at Uptown? Did you own? Who owned the masters of with all the artists you signed? Was that MCA or did you guys get
stuff that I signed? I owned all the stuff that I signed, but I didn't own any Uptown masters. Andre owned that, and he sold. He sold.
Okay. Do you think the label could ever be revived? Because the
label was being revived by a young man by the name of Stephen Carlos. And they gave him Uptown. And I hope that he could do a good job. I don't know what the future of the label is, but I think that he's a pretty smart young man. I've moved on from that, and like I said, I do film.
Yeah.
So I'm not sitting here trying to suggest that I want to come back and do music again, because I really don't. Because I'm at another level right now, quite frankly.
Yeah. What is it that we can expect from you? Because I know you mentioned you did the Defiant ones,
Well,
which was really good.
You could expect the Uptown story, the real one.
Okay. Will you do it as a biopic or of a documentary like the Defiant one?
I'm doing both. And a biopic. I mean, a biopic film and a documentary.
Yeah, because I think the Defiant ones was, you know, it was really good at how that was done. You know, the sort of flashbacks, the sort of different perspectives, just watching the narratives of Dre and Jimmy from different perspectives. And in some sense, I actually enjoyed Jimmy's side because it was, you know, my dad had Fleetwood Mac and all that stuff. So it was like I could relate to listening to that stuff because I'd already known about the Dre stuff. So it was really interesting seeing where he came from and his thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you have all those elements, you have to win. And then Alan Hughes, the best director in the world.
Yeah.
And his brother is one
brothers.
of the greatest directors in the world too.
Menace to Society, was that not the
Menace, Dead Presidents?
Yeah.
American Pimp, From Hell with Johnny Depp, Book of Eli. You know.
Yeah, Book of Eli. Yeah, but
they haven't done a lot of films, but when they do,
yeah, I mean, yeah, Menace to Society was like Boys in the Hood, that type of. The big thing is, what's up with the soundtracks, the movie soundtracks? We miss those type of things.
Right, they're just coming back now. They're just going to start coming back now because something happened. You know, film guys, they look down on music people. They don't think that music people they think they're tacky.
Okay.
They think they're tacky, and I think film people sometimes are tacky in a different way though.
Yeah.
But they're not going to come in and try to steal your publishing. And, you know, they're not concerned with that because there's way more money involved.
Yeah. So, just for us to be able to look out for stuff. So you're saying you've got the Uptown stuff, but anything in the immediate future that we could expect?
Right now, Tupac, Afeni, biodoc right now coming on Hulu. Okay. Right now, directed by Alan Hughes. The story of Afeni, Tupac's mother, and Tupac, and it's not going to be focusing that much on the traditional stuff that has already been said. Should not this that. There's none of that's going to be focused on. It's going to be on how did Tupac began his journey to becoming who he eventually became.
Yeah, and
his mother's journey and how she inspired him to become who he eventually became.
Yeah. And I think growing up knowing her story, you know, an activist.
Her story is incredible.
Yeah, we know about this whole Black Lives Matter, but she was there back in the early days and inspired him and stuff. When should we expect that to come out?
That's coming out 2022.
Okay.
Everything we do takes a long time.
Unlike music, it takes longer with film and stuff.
Not music. Music, you can get something out in 3 months. And right now, the way that these kids make music right now, you can get something out the next day. And you know what I mean? You can get something. They're making records every month. They're putting out a single. It's not the same record business. When we put out records, it took us 6 months to prepare.
Yeah.
To release the record. We had to have a release date. We had to make sure the marketing was in place. You know, we had to make sure none of that is important now.
Yeah. I think
there's no street teams. There's no street teams. There's no promotional teams. a record company now where you had a black music department had at least 100 people on staff, wow. 200. Now it's 3 people, the A&R, 1 head of promotion, and that's that. And he goes nowhere. He emails somebody something. He's not in nobody.
Are you enjoying the slow pace of the film in this side, or do you miss the hustle and bustle of the music?
This shit is not slow. It's not slow. You working and you on call 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? And it's like you got to be on point. Yeah. So it's not slow. It's slow to put it out, maybe, but it's a daily fight. It's like music. It's war, really.
Yeah.
It's war. Like you don't have to, you working with Dr. Dre and Jimmy and Allen Hughes, and there's demands.
Yeah. A question I always ask all my guests before I wrap up is that if you were stuck in an elevator and they say, it'll take about an hour or 2 to get before we get you out, but we can give a movie for you to watch while we're getting you out, what would you request to watch?
The Godfather.
Okay. Yeah, that's a classic one there.
The Godfather.
The Godfather. They're about to put on the movie, but they say, look, we'll play a song as we get the movie on. What song would you request to listen
to? One Night Stand by Father MC and Teddy Riley.
Okay. No, I thought that was I thought Teddy did the 69 and One Night was Eddie.
It might have been Eddie. I thought Teddy did one. It might have been Eddie.
Yeah, I know Eddie. Okay, because I know Eddie. But I definitely want to thank you. Somebody asked how come Andre didn't put out his memoirs. Like
he was in the process of doing that.
Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, it's funny, Andre was like, yo, I'm putting that out. And I said, yeah. And he's like, yeah, you should start getting yours together. And I was like, I'm not in a rush. And he was like, why not? And I said, I'm going to live forever. That's why. And he thought that was funny because I would say things like that all the time. And that's one of the reasons why he loved me, because I would say those kind of things. And he thought that was the funniest thing in the world. And every time Andre seen me and we seen each other, we both had a big smile on our face. We was happy. And regardless of the business or anything, it always, at that night, regardless if we had a real bad fight in the daytime, that night, it's like, where we going to dinner? All right, what we going to do? And anybody that knows anything about Uptown and Andre and myself know that we were connected by the hip. Yeah. And I miss him. And, there's nobody like him, ever. And I used to always say when we were experiencing different things that, damn, we're never going to see this again. We're never going to see this again. Like, certain times we'd be at the Hamptons and Mary would be performing and it would be a Puff Daddy, Jay-Z party. And people would be, you see Bruce Willis, you see Sally Fields, you see Busta Rhymes, you see this cat, that cat, this, that. And, things would occur and you're like, this is never going to happen again. And the celebration, Uptown was built on and represented celebrating in the party. That's what the whole business model was based on, partying. Yeah. And it's never going, for us, for me, never going to happen again like that.
Yeah. No, I think it's a character of the man that after letting Puffy go, that he could actually go back and work with him. That to me was a man who had integrity and humility and he just felt like he was going after look after when he went and met up with Puffy. It was a character of a man that he could do that. That's
and he was happy, and he was happy to do that because I'm gonna tell you something else. Without Andre, he's the glue that connected everybody. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here,
Yeah, he's the glue that connected everybody. And Puffy, Russell, or anybody, they wouldn't have the same connection if it wasn't for Andre.
Mm.
And I know that for a fact that every person that Puff knows, Andre had something to do with putting them together.
Yeah. Wow, but I definitely appreciate Jimmy, this opportunity, this history lessons and stuff, and I know we'll definitely be looking forward, because if it's anything like the Defiant Ones, which was a remarkable piece of movie making, you know, it was really in-depth story. I mean, I don't think people have done it that way, that type of stuff. So if it's anything like that, we're going to expect with the Afina stuff and the Uptown stuff that you're putting together, we're definitely going to be in for a treat and stuff.
Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, to press the notification bell so that you can be notified when we do have a new interview. Loads to come, but thanks a lot for watching.
You know.